bro, look at my hairline, man. I'm getting old, man. And back in the day, I used to have waves. I used to be spinning on these cats. And now I'm out here looking like Mr. Burns, George Jefferson. Absolutely pitiful and pathetic. Yo, welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. Today is an extremely exciting day because I have finally purchased a Tarmac Sl8 Pro frame set. I am very excited to get this thing built up behind me. So of course in today's video, guys, because it is just an unboxing, we're going to be discussing the specs on this frame set, the price, of course the weight on this thing, because I know you guys want to know just exactly how light this frame set is. We're also going to be talking about the why as to why I decided to purchase this frame set, and then of course my plans for the build. So without further ado, let's get busy. Okay, so as I mentioned in the introduction of this video, guys, I have finally purchased a Tarmac Sl8 frame set. This frame has been one of the most, if not the most requested frame set on my channel over the years. And I'm super excited to finally have one of these frame sets in hand because they are pretty hard to come by, especially if you're looking for the S-Works version. So the specs on this frame set, this is, like I said, this is the Tarmac Sl8 frame set in the Pro version that uses the 10R carbon. The color that you see behind me is what Specialized calls their satin blue onyx. So basically it's more of this like this bluish purplish sort of look, mostly on the blue skew of things. And when it comes to the satin finish, it's not quite matte and it's not quite gloss. It's somewhere in the middle, and it's pretty subdued in the shade, but then as soon as the sun hits it, you can really see the paint job and just how much that it really shines out in the sun. Now the size I went with is a size 56, and the geometry is very much similar, almost one-to-one to my 2022 Specialized LA Sprint. And this is really good news for me because I really want to make sure that I get my bike fit dialed in one-to-one with my LA Sprint because even though that frame was alloy, I found that bike to be very comfortable, and just the way that I set up that frame and that bike as a whole, it was really optimized for performance. And I plan to do exactly the same for that frame as I'm going to do with this frame, this Sl8 frame set. Now moving on to the price of this Sl8 Pro frame set, the retail on this is $3,500 USD, which is not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. And for comparison's sake, for my comparable Giant Propel Advanced Pro frame set, similar idea as far as them being competitors to each others for this mid-tier level of frames, that only retailed for, I'm saying only, but that retailed for $3,000 USD. So this Sl8 is like $500 more expensive than the Giant Propel frame is, although this should be measurably lighter than that Advanced Pro frame set. Now, some of the things that's included when you purchase just the frame set alone option from Specialized, it of course includes the seat post, the fork. It actually includes both saddle rail clamps. So whether you're using like steel or titanium railed saddles, or you're using the 7x9 carbon railed saddles, which I plan to use for myself, it includes both of those clamps. It also includes an alloy Tarmac, I believe it's the Tarmac SO7 stem, but the stem is really short. I think it's like 105 millimeters long. And you know, your boy Patty over here is all about that BBC gang, so I'm not going to be using that stem at all. And it also includes a set of spacers for both running a Tarmac SO7 stem, or if you plan to use the Roval integrated cockpit. So it's a really nice touch for them to provide both these options so that you can really get your bike fit dialed in perfectly. All right, boys and girls, you already know what time it is. Let's go ahead and weigh out this Tarmac Sl8 frame set. But before we do, huge shout out to Ahmed Jamal. This guy is one of my favorite jazz musicians of all time. This particular LP, The Piano Scenes of Ahmed Jamal, so many classic records on this album, especially if you are a hip hop head and you like to sample like I do. A lot of great records, but if you just are a jazz lover as is, fantastic album. But let's say you aren't into jazz. Since we have a special frame set in hand, let's go ahead and give you guys a 2-for-1. 2-for-1, boys and girls. So we got Shalimar, the 3 of Love. Hey, they say Shalimar got a new girl. Anyway, this LP also is classic for the 80s with such classic songs as Make That Move Right Now. And also, This Is for the Love in You. This is for the lover in you. Okay, all right. As you can tell, I am excited. All right, so anyway, let's get this frame set weighed out. Tarmac Sl8 Pro frame set with the 10R or the Fact 10R carbon in the size 56. I did remove the front derailleur hanger because I am going one by. Of course, I removed the bottle cage bolts. I did leave the rear derailleur hanger because obviously we need that. I practiced this so many times and it was so hard to get this frame to balance on here. Ugh. I'm gonna get it. Can't do it. We can't do it, my youth. Oh my gosh. There we go. 827 grams for the frame. So that's about, I think Specialized advertises at 780 grams. So this is, what is that? That's about 47 grams over. But anyway, it is what it is. All right. Next up is the uncut fork. Uncut fork is 397 grams. And finally, for the seat post, which of course includes the saddle rail clamps, 169 grams. So let's continue. Okay, so clearly this is the lightest frame set that I've ever tested or I plan to test on this channel at 827 grams. Although on the website, Specialized does advertise this pro level frame set to weigh in at like 780 grams. So this one is a little bit overweight. Maybe it could be with the paint job, who knows, but it is something to keep in mind. Now, for context sake, the S-Works version of the Tarmac Sl8, using the 12R carbon versus the 10R carbon, it's advertised on Specialized website at 685 grams for the frame in the size 56, same as my frame set. Now think about that for a second. For just saving 100 to even 140 grams of weight, saving that, you have to spend $2,000 more for that S-Works frame. You're talking about $5,500 USD just to save like 100 grams. Now think about how much that costs. You can pretty much buy almost 2 complete bikes for the price of just the frame set. And for myself, even though I'm not super heavy or super light, spending $2,000 more than the $3,500 just to save 100 grams is pretty ridiculous. And who knows just exactly how robust that S-Works frame is going to be. But then again, I could just be a hater because I simply just couldn't afford the S-Works version of that frame set. Now, just for some further context about weight, let's talk about some of the other lightweight frame sets, using my air quotes, that I have ridden in the past. So for my Giant Propelled Advanced Pro in a similar size medium/large, the frame itself came in at 1,071 grams, including both hangers, fork 362, seat post 198, giving you a grand total of 1,631 grams for the complete frame set. My Tavelo Attack, similar size. Frame came in at 1,041 grams. Fork came in at 443 grams, seat post 156, giving a grand total of 1,640 grams. So for this Tarmac Sl8 in the Pro version using the 10R carbon, this comes in at 1,393 grams. So that basically is like 238 grams less than those two frame sets. So it is incredibly lighter, and it should be using, better high quality carbon. Who really knows if I'll actually be able to tell that out on the road. But for the price point, 238 grams lighter than those, hey, I'll take it. Now, next up, let's talk about the why. Now, why did I purchase this frame set? So there's really only a couple of reasons why. So the first reason is this frame set has been requested a lot by you, the viewers, especially since it was released last year. And the thing is, I hesitated on getting this frame, one, because they were kind of hard to get when they first was released. And just because here in Chicago, the Tarmac, especially the SO7, the Tarmac is just a very popular frame here in Chicagoland. And I understand why it is. And Specialized does a good job with marketing, especially here in Chicago. But I'm someone that likes to ride a little bit of more unique frames, maybe frames that you don't always see. Like, for example, if you show up to a coffee ride here or even our fast group rides, you're going to see so many Specialized Tarmac SO7s that I just wanted to stand out a little bit from the crowd, which is why I went with the Giant Propel. But at the end of the day, this frame has been requested a lot by you guys, the viewers. And so I figured this is probably one of the pinnacles of bikes to review, and it'll sort of set the standard for any of the other bikes that I review going forward. And it also gives me a little bit of freedom of speech to say, you know, for all the frames that I have reviewed from the low to the high, even some of the Tarmac clones with the Velo builds, that now I can have a little bit of more freedom of speech to say that, you know, I've at least reviewed one of the benchmarks in the cycling industry today, and I'll be able to compare this to all the other frames going forward and even some of the other frames in the past. And the second reason why I wanted to review this bike, or at least be able to ride it throughout the summer, is I actually really haven't seen a lot of comprehensive bike reviews on this frame set. Now, I have seen reviews done by some of the more popular journalisms or journalists out there, like Cycling News, etc. And I'm not gonna full out and say that I think that some of those reviews are biased, because I'm sure there are plenty of people who watch my videos who might believe that I'm biased with some of my opinions as well. But I just haven't seen a lot of independent reviewers out there reviewing this bike. Maybe just because they just don't care, or maybe because the frames are hard to come by. But nonetheless, I wanted to throw my name into the hat to be someone, at least from an independent sake, to be able to review this frame, especially considering all of the other frames that I've reviewed at this point. Everything from $500 frames all the way up to $3,000 frames, and now apparently $3,500. And finally, guys, my plans for this build. So lucky for me, I actually have the latest SRAM Force E-Tap group set ready to go. And I think it's gonna match this frame perfectly. I am gonna go 1x because I have plenty of other bikes that are 2x. And this isn't gonna be necessarily a weight weenie build, but I do wanna keep it on the lighter side since that's what its intent is for. I'm probably going to use my Craft Racing Works CS 5060 wheels, because those are the lightest yet aero wheels that I have, and I think they will pair nicely with this build. Now the thing is, I am waiting for a couple of more things to arrive in order for me to complete this build. I do have some custom decals for this frame set that will cover up the black decals, because I don't think the black decals for the Specialized logo would be my first choice. I think something with a little bit more pop and a little bit more color will really pair well with the satin blue finish. And I'm also waiting for a set of 3D printed spacers for the stem I'm going to use, because even though this frame has the butt sniffer for the front, I think that these included spacers, they doesn't really look too good with it aesthetically. And so thankfully I have found some spacers out there from London, or at least the UK, that's going to help kind of clean up the front end and, you know, make it look a little bit nicer. But overall, I'm super excited for this build. I will say that I'm not necessarily 100% or 10 out of 10 thrilled with the overall looks and aesthetics of this frame set. I think the SL7 is more classically proportioned, and I think that frame, along with the Venge, is going to go down in history from Specialized as one of the more classic or popular frames ever. I think this is more of an evolution versus a revolution of the Tarmac SL7, but nonetheless, this is the new hotness out. This is what the streets have been talking about. This is a frame that's either you're gonna love it or hate it. Some people are gonna say that, you know, I'm moving over to the dark side now, even though I've already reviewed 2 Specialized LA Sprints. But nonetheless, I'm excited to get this built, and I'll be able to test this over the summertime. So that is it, guys. So be out on the lookout in the upcoming weeks, where I will have this bike eventually built up, and then I'll be able to give you my first ride impressions on the build. And then we'll see that if this is the one bike to rule them all, we'll see if whether or not this is going to be the king of all the other frames and bikes that I have tested here on this channel over the last 3 months. And it's crazy to me. Like, when I first started this channel, my intentions was not to only review Chinese bikes. It was really just because I didn't have a lot of money. And so I bought the cheapest frame set I could buy, made a video on it, and here we are today reviewing Tarmac Sl8 frame sets. What a time to be alive. So that's gonna wrap up today's video, guys. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them down below, and I will check you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace. They not like us. They not like us. They not like us. They not. Sorry.